Hey, Dr. Jonathan Shepard here on another Friday edition of Ask the Doctors. I am so glad to be with you. Today is Friday, June 18th, 2021. And I want you to come on in the room and thank you for all those who are watching and who will watch. And even want to start out even talking about those who will watch the replays. And so thankful that we have so many number of people who will hit me up days after watching our episodes. And thank you for such a wonderful outpour last week. Man, I had a tremendous feedback listening to the stories from Principal Thompson and from Ms. Letitia Dorsey, just on the various things that they have experienced in the classroom in the elementary and high school level. And so that was an awesome show. Thank you again for the feedback. Today is such a full day. There's so much that has been happening within our world. I just want to take a little bit of time just to digest some of that information, and then we'll get ready with our show, our main topics today. And I will say I'm excited about the guests that we have today. Very honored that they would even agree to come on with me. So today is a federal holiday. Well, actually, June 19th will be, but when June 19th falls on a weekend such as it does this year, we will celebrate Juneteenth. Wow. That was enacted or signed into law by President Biden this week, Juneteenth. And if you don't know, Juneteenth is the day that we celebrate when all of the slaves were informed that they were free. And so that is so interesting that the proclamation was signed, but yet 2.5 years later, there were people who did not know that they were free. And there's so much I could even play on that. So much I could say on that, when knowing that you're free versus being free. Or I can reverse it around. You could be free and not know that you're free. Well, I could really stay there, because there's so many times that we've been given liberties, but yet not know how to even act in those liberties given to us. So with that said, I want to just celebrate for those who choose to celebrate. Happy Juneteenth Day. Last year was such a big push after the murder of George Floyd. And I remember last year, so many different corporations hitting me up to ask if I could help in dealing with the reconciliation of the anger and the anxiety and just the frustration that many people of color had during this particular time and season. And I should say that even, that particular time and season, there was so much built up anger and anxiety. But I hate to tell you that there's so much that still resides even now. I was just meeting with some folks within my job, and do want to thank those who are watching. And Chris, thank you for always being a consistent watcher. He is our clinic supervisor at Hope Health Systems. And Sarita Watson, thank you. Thank you. Rhonda Hayes, thank you, everybody, for watching. And so let me just tell you, this is people who are just angry. Just really noticing just how many people are just really anxious and angry and apathetic right now. Those are the 3 A's that I talk about: anger, apathy, and anxiety. And what I'm noticing is just when people can't get their way, they're on edge. It's almost any little thing will send them over to be anxious and to just launch out and thrust out at people. And so we just want to be careful that is not you, but also be aware that anger is going to increase as we're opening up. You might say, why is that going to increase? Because so many people have so many pent up feelings. People have had so much that they've bottled up during the pandemic, being isolated, not being able to get along with people, that now when the doors are opening up, just like when you have shaken a bottle and you take the cap off, it just explodes and everything just goes everywhere. So we want to make sure that we understand what's happening with people, and let that not be us. Hope Health Systems is an organization that can help you with your anger, anxiety, and apathy. And so I am thankful for this time that they allow for me to sponsor this. Well, they sponsor this program, but allow for me to broadcast this program. So, with that said, I think I just want to end there. Happy Juneteenth. Thank you, Angela Pinkney. You are a consistent watcher, and I appreciate you being on today. So, today we're going to discuss uh, the third part of our series of the virtual classroom, the performance review of the virtual classroom. And so, I've asked some people to come, some special guests who I greatly respect in their right, in their profession, and just being strong Black men in our society. I really do, not just saying that because I'm on the air right now, but I really do respect their work and have followed their work, and really am taken aback by just how much they have accomplished in such a short amount of time in their lives. It's amazing, and I am really thankful that they agreed to be with us today. So one of the persons is here. Our other guest, he may not make it. We'll see. And if he does, he'll jump right on in the discussion, just as if he was here at the very beginning. So just want to make you aware of that. All right. So let me bring on the first guest, who is, I believe this is his first time. This is his first time. I've had some invitations, we just weren't able to link up, but this is his first time on Ask the Doctors broadcast. And so I'm going to bring to the room the Dr. Timothy Fair. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, Dr. Shepard. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome. Appreciate you bringing me on today.
oh, absolutely. It is a great honor. And so let me just start out with just asking you to tell the people a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're from, anything that you want them to know.
Absolutely. Well, again, my name is Timothy Fair. I have the great pleasure of serving as the Vice Chancellor for Diversity and Inclusion here at LSU Health Sciences Center in New Orleans. LSU is comprised of course, the flagship university in Baton Rouge, but our Health Sciences Center is a medical-based center in the city of New Orleans that has a School of Medicine, School of Nursing, School of Dentistry, Allied Health, Public Health, and then our graduate student programs. I'm originally from Wisconsin, so I'm originally a Midwesterner, a proud native Milwaukeean. I'm the oldest of six. I come from a very spiritually grounded family. I also happen to have the pleasure of serving as one of the facilitators for eCornell's Diversity and Inclusion Certificate Program. And I do some consulting work on the side with organizations. And so that's a bit about my professional life and a little bit about my personal life. Again, thank you for having me. I'm excited about the conversation that we'll engage in today.
Absolutely. Wow. I know you're the oldest of six.
Yes.
Come on here. I hear you. I hear you. Wow. And I must say that this gentleman has also been a part of other great institutions, such as Cornell University, he mentioned. And just before you were at Cornell, you were at Auburn, correct?
I was actually at Auburn right before I came here at LSU. So I started my career at Mississippi State, moved to Cornell for a while, and then went to Auburn to work for about 3.5 years. And then I took this role here at LSU.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. So as you see, he has quite a track record. Dr. Fair has quite a track record behind him. And so as we get into this discussion, I am looking forward to it so we can really pick apart, because there are so many people out there who are looking to move forward in their undergraduate and graduate studies.
Sure.
So Dr. Fair, I am looking to see what your perspectives are regarding how undergrads and graduates, you can choose either one or choose both, how they've handled the pandemic and the studies that they've had to try to continue in the midst of this global healthcare crisis.
Dr. Shepard, that's a great question. And I'm glad you are focusing a conversation specifically on the navigation strategies and the resilience strategies of undergraduate and graduate students. One of the things that I've noticed is that college students are doing the best they can with what they've got. And like most of us, right, we're grappling with how to navigate successfully and how to thrive in environments where really survival is our base and our foundation. And so I have noticed that there's been a real cry of our students around things to better support them. Students are not shy. So they've been, knocking on my door. They've been sending me emails, setting up meetings, really trying to figure out how can we partner with them to make their experiences as optimal as they can be. And so I really appreciate when students can really forge their own paths and really create some level of agency within themselves. And I've seen that really emerge during this moment. I also say that it depends on what student you're talking about, right? Like we're all in this environment, we're all traversing the same ocean. We're all in the same ocean. But I often say that we're not all on the same boat. That some boats have holes in them historically, right? Some boats have holes in them socially. Some boats don't make the same amount of money. And so we're traversing the same ocean, but we're doing so in very different boats. And so my job as a higher education administrator, specifically focused on the work of equity, is to figure out whose boats have the most holes in them. And let's work initially, right, on plugging those boats. We know that everybody's got some repair and some reparative work that needs to happen, but there are some boats who are really sinking. And so I really view my role specifically with that mission in mind. Let me figure out, right, the historic inequities. Let me figure out those who have essentially been so marginalized or dispossessed that we've got to figure that out before we can get to the other folks. And so I make no apologies for really applying differentiated resources to groups who have been historically dispossessed. And I say that, my students have shown some great resilience in this moment. They've shown great leadership. And I really think that they're going to be the better for it.
Man, let me tell you, that analogy regarding the boats, I'm going to have to use that.
Yes.
I love that. The fact that we're all in the same ocean, but we have a different boat that some of us are on, and some boats have more holes than others. So I'm just going to stay with your analogy. I love analogies, and I love to ride that wave. So I'm going to ride it, okay?
Yes.
So with those different holes, how do we plug those holes? That's what I'm looking at. It's not cool just to say, hey, that boat over here has more holes than my boat.
Precisely.
So they're going to go down before me. I mean, that's not right. So how do we, I know that we're kind of diverting just a little bit, but how do we plug these holes?
That's a great question. And some of it is resources. You're plugging with institutional resources. And I often tell and share with my executive leaders and teams and peers here at the institution that we have got to do what is right, even when it requires us to do ample. A lot of universities have programs for women in STEM education because women in STEM education, right? Women have historically not a fault of their own, but quite frankly, some of the systemic barriers have not participated in STEM education in the same way as their sort of male peers. So we don't have a problem with doing women in STEM programs. Well, we need to apply that all across the board. We need to apply that with people of color, right? We need to apply that with other marginalized groups. We need to apply that with international students and students across difference. And so we apply it with institutional resources. We plug that with institutional resources. We also plug it with institutional policies. So I'll give you another example. When I got to LSU, I decided that we needed to better protect our diverse students that were attending our university. And so creating no tolerance policies with respect to harassment, discrimination, and bias. Creating an institutional reporting tool that regardless if you're a faculty, staff, or student of our institution, you would now be able to have a centralized place where you can report matters of discrimination, harassment, and bias. And so we've also got to build out a list and sort of litany of policies that ensure that we're plugging those holes, but resources and not just rhetoric. I'm not trying to preach that, but I really do believe that a lot of times we get in trouble by saying we want everybody to succeed, we want everybody to thrive, but our resources don't match our rhetoric. And so when you have a strategic vision that really propels you forward as an institution, it must be followed by resources, attention, and accountability.
Wow. Resources and not rhetoric.
That's right. That's right.
All right, well, I'm taking two things now. So when you see me jot down stuff, just
So
know.
I've taken enough of yours, I'm sure.
So as we even move the conversation along now, because we talked about the different things that we've seen. So again, staying even with that. So have you seen our people of color even more disadvantaged during the pandemic? So what I'm asking is that because of the pandemic, resources were pretty much cut off.
Right.
Not all, but they were definitely stressed and
Right.
not as much available. So what are we seeing now with those students who we know need the resources? They know they got the holes in the boat, so what was kind of the response that you've seen from the schools, and what things have you seen that they did to make sure that these students didn't drown?
Yeah, I've actually been heartened to see a lot of great activity occur, and I've got to give it to many institutions, not all of them, right? Nobody across the board gets it right.
Mm-hmm.
But specifically, given the fact that we were going through this triple crises at the same time, right? The global health pandemic, the racial inequity that has always been there, but this sort of social uprising, as they call it.
Right.
And then the economic crisis that was going on. All of these things were going on at the same time. And so a lot of institutions had to pivot. They had to think differently. They had to be poised differently. And one of the things that I will give many institutions is that they have begun to step it up with respect to their support of historically disadvantaged, historically marginalized groups across difference. But when we're thinking about students of color, one of the things that I've seen is there have been a lot of universities who have begun to do targeted and unapologetic sort of scholarship-based funds specifically for students of color.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of policies that go up that would have never happened if we had not been in this most pivotal place societally. And so I've been saying a lot here is that what happened with the sort of social unrest and the global pandemic happening at the same time, well, that opened up a window for increased discussions around difference. And quite frankly, the thing about windows is that windows, they open, but they also shut. And so while it was really popular, after the murder of George Floyd to have conversations about race, well, that window is starting to shut, and people are starting to become a bit less inclined to want to have those conversations and a little more approaching it a little more laborious. And so I'm challenging my institution and in the other places that I have levels of influence in, is we're not going to let this window shut. Yes, it was a period where people felt a little more comfortable leaning in, but regardless of where we are societally, regardless of the popularity of these discussions, we've got students who are hurting. We've got students who are having experiences that may be really disparaging to them in and out of their curricular environments. And so as educators, as administrators in higher education, it's incumbent upon us to not let this window close, even though it's becoming less and less popular to have these discussions.
Wow. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That shed some light. And I'm looking at one of our viewers, Rhonda Hayes. She mentioned that she said, I think that they have the resources, but when you need them, they really don't reach out. I had a situation, I went all the way to the dean, and she should not have had to. And that's an unfortunate situation. But truthfully, that's what it requires sometimes.
That's right.
And you know what, Dr. Fair, what happens is that sometimes we get so discouraged after the door or the window has closed.
Yeah.
Several windows have closed. And sometimes you have to continue to keep going right up that ladder to get to the dean or whoever it is. So we can get those necessary resources.
Absolutely.
Here's the thing that I'm wondering, though, and I'm sure other people have been wondering, are the students ready for employment? They had to change on the dime. Many people who were used to doing in-person classes, certain degrees or programs, that's probably the word is better, they required in-person training. They required some type of internship or something to make sure that they had the training. And, I can just think like, now again, I'm a physician, so I can only imagine, how you're going to graduate with the MD and you haven't touched a person,
Right.
so I'm not going to that extreme, but
Right.
I'm just curious, has there been any data research? And I know it's kind of early, but what are your thoughts about that? Are the people ready?
I would argue, Dr. Shepard, that our students are ready in different ways, that the pandemic has caused them to be prepared in a way that we don't necessarily talk about. And I often call it the gift that is unsought, right? We didn't ask for this gift. We didn't ask that things come out this way. But quite frankly, what our students are getting is resilience. And there's a book by an author, his name is Dr. Jonathan Haidt. He talks about the Coddling of the American Mind is the name of the book, but he talks about the fact that colleges and universities are doing a poor job at preparing students with resilience that they need to successfully navigate a professional career. Well, I believe that this pandemic, if nothing else, has given students a crash course in resilience, that no longer are they only just depending on their professors? Because quite frankly, many of them were doing remote instruction and didn't have a professor that they could so easily communicate with or communicate with face to face. And so there's an unsought gift that I think is really going to help them with non-academic skills once they leave this environment. I am also a bit of an optimist. And so I recognize that some of the things that students may have missed, because I do teach as well, I recognize that my ability to engage students as authentically as I once was a bit impeded because of the fact that we were engaging virtually.
Right.
But the things that they did get, I think, will supplant and really help to transform their careers. And so we can get them technical skills, but if you don't even have resilience, if you don't have some level of agency, if you don't have some level of autonomy, you having these technical skills is okay, but what about the other things that you need to navigate society and navigate your life as an adult? And so I believe that our students are being uniquely prepared in ways that maybe I wasn't even prepared once I left college, given the fact that they are engaging in so many different social and economic and political crises. I think that there's a gift in that.
Wow. Man, you covered it strong. Thank you. I'm loving this. I am loving this. And so is our audience. I mean, they are really commenting on who. Thank you, Dr. Hayes, for being here with us today. Man, I hadn't thought about it like that. I've been teaching a lot about resiliency in regards to mental health.
Yes.
And so that is definitely one of the tenets of having good mental health, understanding that there is something inside of you that will allow you to bounce back.
Right.
We as Black people, since we were talking about that earlier, definitely have resiliency inside of us.
Oh, yes.
The thing that now I want to talk about, since we're on that particular train about resiliency, is what about the people who they have it, but they don't know how to use it? So what am I referring to? One of the things that is happening now, there is a pandemic, if you would, of mental health crises.
Oh, yeah.
And I know we're seeing it on college campuses and universities. I mean, I just think about my own patient caseload. So Dr. Fair, since the pandemic struck, I am working harder now than I have ever since being in residency.
Wow.
And that's when I didn't have control over my time. I just did whatever people told me to do.
Right.
Now I have control of my time, but it's just like, oh my God, it's just so much.
Absolutely.
So I can only imagine what you're seeing on your level. So let's just start there. I'm gonna keep it broad. Just tell us what you're seeing regarding mental health within the students who are in college and universities.
Absolutely. Great question. And like much of what I talk about in identity is that it really depends on what group of students we're talking about. Yes, there is a nationwide crisis of mental health. We recognize, I believe that there is a study that says nearly half of college students during the pandemic are going through anxiety or depression.
Mm.
And quite frankly, we also know that the mental health burden is heavier on our historically marginalized groups, our people of color, our folks across difference. And so, given that they are dealing with this differently, I have witnessed many of them seeking out resources across campus. I work very closely with the professionals on campus who deal with mental health. And I really encourage them and send them resources specifically around culturally competent mental health resources, that we are providing a differentiated lens and not just applying the same kind of lens that we would to any student, without any respect to really the unique experiences and lived experiences of differentiated populations. And so my thought is that there is a level of trauma that we have got to allow people to really grapple with themselves and make space for that on campus and not try to shun it. I think sometimes we, in our earnest attempt to do what is right for our institution, we don't necessarily do what is right for our students.
Yes.
One of the things is giving them the right outlets, but not just giving them resources, but making sure those resources can support the fullness of their identity. One of the things that we witnessed as an institution is that our students were like, we appreciate the resources that you give us, the mental health resources that you give us, but none of those people are people of color, right? None of those people are culturally competent. And so for me, those were really important things to hear so that I could use that data to influence future policy decisions and influence future hiring decisions and influence the way that we prepare our mental health professionals to engage across difference. And so now we have done training, we have done a host of town halls that allow for students and faculty and staff to grapple with what it means to explore strategies for resiliency, but also strategies for the maintenance of their mental health. And so yes, there is a crisis, don't get me wrong, but I think that there is depending on where you are, I can speak for my institution, there is a crisis, but there is also a commitment. And where there is a commitment, I really think we'll see transformation.
Wow. I love it. I love it. Commitment, and we'll see transformation.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Where there is a crisis, there needs to be a commitment.
Absolutely.
And that's where so many people, unfortunately, have been tested, their commitment. Their commitments have been tested.
That's right.
And some people, they hold on to the commitment or get stronger, or they drop out or fall out.
Right.
Has there been any preliminary data as to the number of people who've dropped out? Because I'm concerned about those folks.
That's a really great question. I am not going to say that I can speak intelligently to that. Now, what I will say is it likely looks different in a sort of 4-year institution context.
Yeah.
Here on the professional student side, we have not seen an influx of people withdrawing.
That's good.
That is very good. But I would also say that speaks to the commitment of our faculty members here who've done a really fantastic job, specifically during the global pandemic, of being proximal to our students as much as they can. Yes, we cannot be in the same room, but I'm going to create infrastructure that makes sure that you feel some level of connection and connectivity to me and to the work that we're learning and to the peers that you're engaged with. That kind of level of intention really helps students to feel part of a community, even when they're not proximal or inside of the brick and mortar of the institution. So creating those innovative virtual sort of methods and virtual spaces for students to be able to do that is really, really central. And I'm bragging on my university, rightfully so, because they've been able to do that really well.
Got you. No, and I didn't mean to kind of throw a question that you may not be able to speak intelligently on, but I'm just really thinking about that, and I'm really not bothered. And so when I get stuck like that, I want to encourage people, because if that is you out there, you're listening to us,
right? You
can go back and pick it back up.
Absolutely,
man. I want you to speak to that, because I feel myself want to know, but no, why don't you speak to that, Dr. Fair? Speak to that person who they dropped out, the hole in the boat got too big and they went under.
Absolutely. I would encourage anybody, regardless of where you are, but particularly those of you who perhaps have had some hardships in the sort of acquisition of your academic career, that you pick it back up. That a part of resiliency is learning that there are some parts of you that deserve to be fully realized. And so maybe you had some bumps along the way, but let me encourage you that you are not to be looking at your life using another person's measuring stick anyway. And so maybe it did take them 4 years. And maybe it's going to take you longer than that.
Mhm.
But it is not about how long it takes, it's about the destination and the journey to get there. And so if you're grappling with the decision, if you're grappling with the difficulty of disappointment with respect to what you have done, I want to encourage you, regardless of how old you are, regardless of the things that you've done in your life, that the acquisition of your academic credentials is a noble and a worthy journey worth taking. And nobody can define that but you, and nobody should define that but you. And so give up parts of yourself that tell you that you can't do it. Give up the imposter syndrome that tells you that you don't deserve to do it. And really embrace the fullness of your destiny, the fullness of your purpose, and the fullness of the God-given things that He's put inside of you, and do all that you can to maximize it. And know that you've got a community of folks around who are supported to your success as well. You know, Dr. Shepherd, I know that you're a great support to your network, but I want to offer, you know, if there's anybody out there who is really grappling with this question and wants to talk offline, I am absolutely committed to that as well.
Man, come on here. Oh, man. You all see this? This is the real deal. I told you we have a special person on our show today. Man, thank you. That hit home for me. I also want to celebrate, since we're in the midst of doing this, Dr. Terrence Hayes. I mentioned him earlier. He just completed and graduated his, I believe, doctorate.
Wow.
I forget what it was in. Sorry, Dr. Hayes. My memory, my recalls, I have it just as fast as I wanted to happen. But I do know that you just graduated. I do want to congratulate you. And the reason why I'm pointing you out, sir, is because you did it in the midst of a pandemic.
Come on.
You did it in the midst of a pandemic. Let me tell you, I didn't have to graduate in the midst of a pandemic.
Exactly.
I'm thinking to myself, wow, what that would have looked like, how that feels, how to be able to even respond to not being able to celebrate and do those things that are normally attached onto a graduation. To even hear your name called.
Right.
Looking at the screen, just like you're looking at us right now, and see your name go across. There we go. Oh, I knew he was going to do it. Doctorate of Education in Community Care and Counseling.
Congratulations.
So congratulations. I wish I had my blowhorn with me, and I sounded off. But that really just touched me as you were saying that the commitment is needed in the midst of crises.
Absolutely.
Man, that speaks volumes. So thank you for speaking to those persons who are in the midst of even trying to finish out their program.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious, what is the school going to look like in the fall? Let's just go there. I know that certain universities, they are requiring vaccinations, and there are going to be some students who say, I'm not getting vaccinated. So it's kind of a two-part question there. So let's just start about what's your take on what's it going to look like on a college campus come fall of 2021?
I think come fall 2021, students are coming back to campus and they're going to try to make up for everything that they missed. And so, I don't work in a four-year institution anymore. I'm at a professional school. And so given that, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little thankful that I'm not at a four-year institution right now, because I can imagine that by virtue of people just being isolated for over a year, that's going to bleed over into the collegiate environment, and students are going to be a lot more social and cause a lot more bit of chaos than they would normally. But I really do believe that people are coming back looking for community. So students are going to be a little more poised and ready to build communal networks, to be part of student organizations, to be leading in student organizations and seeking out, opportunities across campus for leadership. I believe that there will be a host to your earlier point around vaccinations, that there are going to be a host of policies that institutions are grappling with. And it's going to look different for different institutions. For example, some institutions are going to have a vaccine requirement.
Mm-hmm.
Some institutions are going to not even allow you to register for courses if you're not vaccinated. You got to think about institutions who are highly globalized, where they're, 30% of their population is from a different country. And so some of those countries don't have the same vaccine as us. And so what do we do with that, right? And so there are some institutions who have such a high international student population that they're going to have to allow for whatever vaccine those students got in their country, right? Regardless of if it's a recognized vaccine in our nation, that they're going to allow for those students to count that as a vaccine. Others are grappling with, do we revaccinate them? But there's not enough. You're the MD, so I don't want to talk about this. I work for MD, but I'm not an MD. But this notion of do we revaccinate is a troubling question that is ill-researched right now, because it's like, are you going to put people's bodies through another vaccination? So there are multiple sort of considerations that people are making. Another thing is, for students who may not be vaccinated, some institutions are saying, okay, we'll let you come to class, we'll let you register for class, but you will not be able to come to any events, and you will have to take remote instruction. And so there are a host of considerations that institutions are going to have to make that is best for them and their environment, and best really for their students. And it's going to look differently. If you're at a rural institution, like the one that I probably worked for, Mississippi State, which is situated in a pretty small kind of city. Auburn is also a small city as well. But New Orleans is a lot different. So, our students are coming to class on Monday, but they may be, on bourbon on Tuesday or Monday night. And so the interactions that they have in a more urban center is going to require us to be thoughtful about the way in which we build out our infrastructure and really create policies to protect all of our campus. So it's a really complex question, and it's really contextual, but I'm really happy that we've been talking about this. Me and my executive leadership, we meet every Monday to have conversations around what is our institution going to look like in the fall. We've been doing that for several months. And so hopefully institutions are well positioned, but I can speak definitively for the one that I work for. I'm really excited to say we've been creating some really innovative strategies so that our students that are coming in will be well positioned and safe in this environment.
Oh, that's excellent. And you're saying something that is so important, and I hope people are picking that up, that we must have conversations and we must do it consistently.
That's right.
There's no way that you can be a part of an institution, whether it be faith-based, non-faith-based, non-for-profit, whatever, and you not understand that what was is no longer.
Precisely.
So you cannot just think that you're just going to now pick up from where you left off, 16 some months ago, and think that now, everything is good. No, people have changed.
Yes, they have. The world has changed.
The world has changed.
Absolutely.
And the thing that I'm concerned about, Dr. Fair, is whether or not our people even want to come back into the classroom, whether they're vaccinated or not.
Right.
I saw one of the comments earlier about a person, I think it was Rhonda, who was mentioning how she had to have various different ways that she was acquiring her degrees, go through some in person, then online, then mainly online. And some people just learn better online.
That's true.
We've seen that even at the lower levels in elementary school. I've seen it where some students turned around from all Fs. I was just like, what happened? Like, it's like, wow. But it was the fact that they had more attention, they had more dedication, and commitment. I love that word, commitment to the learning process. And that was what helped flip the Fs to the As.
Right.
So, I hear you. We're definitely going to have to be consistently meeting, talking, developing plans.
Yep.
What we develop now in June may not work in September.
Precisely. And being able to pivot and approach it as not a mistake, right? but just
Mm.
iterative learning process that we are constantly evolving. And so, yes, it may have worked in July, but if it doesn't work in September, we've got to pivot from that. And we
Right.
should be able to do that authentically and with great earnest and unapologetically. And oftentimes in organizations, in the academy, much more, people they get really tied and married to where we are in terms of our current policy or our
Mm.
current protocols, that they can't embrace where we need to be.
Mm.
And so the innovative, high touch institutions are pivoting from all of that. There are institutions who are saying, okay, we're going to come back to class, but we're going to offer remote instruction because they see fiscally that any class that we do can be students in class, but it can be students in China, right? And so we've
Right.
got 50 students in China paying tuition, right? And 50 students in our classroom, we've automatically doubled our revenue. And so organizations who are getting it right are thinking about how to pivot and create what you call a new normal, but I'm going to call just a iterative normal, that
Mm.
our new normal ought to always become new. And our
Mm.
problem is when our normal stays normal too long.
My God. I I was ready for you to say some more. Come on. Your problem is when your normal stays normal too long.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh man, this has been good. Oh, I'm enjoying the dialogue back and forth. And then one of the Dr. Hayes mentioned he wanted me to give my professional opinion as to the decline in virus infections. I left that alone today. I normally will give some type of update regarding the virus infection rates, but I left that alone. And yes, Dr. Hayes, it's definitely declining. I even have an app on my phone now. Even when you go to the Weather Channel app, and when you're traveling, it will now tell you the number of cases, the number of deaths that have occurred in that particular state. And so you have watched how this how the rate has gone down. Let me just tell you this, and I don't want to stay on here because that's going to digress too much. Um, College students, let me tell you, you are at great risk if you have not gotten vaccinated of being infected by the Delta variant.
Mm.
Right? Um, Dr. Fair, this what 2, 3 months ago, by consecutive months, it's just now starting to wane down just a little. The amount of patients that I had infected with the coronavirus during the months of March through May, I had never had that experience before since the pandemic started.
Wow.
And they were in their 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Wow.
And let me tell you, when they got sick, they weren't just laid up. I mean, they were out for weeks. They couldn't go to work. They couldn't function. It was bad. It was bad. And some of them were a little touch and go. We were wondering, like, my God, are they on their way out of here,
Wow.
transitioning?
That's
And
so
so, yeah, that was just really concerning to me that even at a young age, quote unquote young age. Well, not I say quote unquote. I mean, they are young, uh,
Mhm.
but young but yet adult age that
Right.
supposed to be more healthy. That this virus is really getting to them, and so I just pivot back to what we were talking about. That we have to make sure that we're doing what is safe and what is effective as far as people getting the knowledge that they so desperately need.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just curious, and I'm not looking for you to divulge um, personal information or personal or exact information regarding your institution, but I am concerned about the financial health of institutions now. You kind of just hit on it. I never thought about it like that, about the plan of having 50 people internationally paying for tuition while you had another 50 people in
Right.
person paying like double. Wow. Um, I'm concerned about the financial health. I've watched how our stock market has just soared while the poverty gap has continued to widen.
Yeah,
That bothers me.
absolutely. Absolutely.
It's stuff like that yeah,
Yep.
yeah, So I'm just curious, about the financial health of our universities to make sure that our students are able to be supported, whether they need financial aid or whatever type of resources, grants or scholarships. Have you seen anything where things have shifted or taken a turn with that?
Absolutely. I've seen contextually, some institutions are doing okay. I think most institutions have had to grapple with some loss, but it hits differently for different type of institutions. So, for example, when you think about small private institutions, they're taking the brunt, in my view and estimation, of the hit, the financial hit with
Wow.
respect to lost revenue. But
Right.
even large institutions, specifically large institutions with NCAA programs, right? So
Ah,
you think about LSU, who has a large football program. Think about University of Alabama. Well, that's hundreds of millions of dollars a year
wow.
that an institution gets from these football programs. I'm talking. I didn't say millions, right? Hundreds of millions, and depending upon what program you're talking about, you could be talking about closer to the billion.
Wow.
And so that's a lot of lost revenue from people not attending games, and a lot of lost revenue that happens from the the athletic side from these universities with large athletic presence. And so there's also that. But quite frankly, I think that the colleges that are best positioned to survive this financial challenge and most
Mhm.
financial challenge, and you probably will be surprised by hearing me say this, but it is the institutions specifically who are in urban communities. And I'll give you a reason
Mm.
why I say that. It is now becoming a bit more popular for students to stay at home and commute to school, right? And so
Ah,
if my university is downtown and I live 15, 20 minutes away and commute, I am more inclined to do that than to go away during a financial crisis, right? Than to go
mm,
5, 6, 7, 8 hours away. And so urban commuter campuses, I think, again, this is anecdotal, right? Not necessarily
mm.
research based, but I think that they are well positioned to really overcome and thrive during this time of financial crisis. But again, all of us have taken hits. Some institutions have had to furlough their employees. Some universities have had to literally lay off people. I know folks who are in similar were in similar type of roles that I'm in who no longer have jobs. And so
Wow.
I recognize that depending on the institution, what has become a financial risk or what has been seen as dispensable looks differently. And
Mm.
quite frankly, we also need to talk about this notion of dispensability, right? What's the first to get cut when times get hard? That's an important question to start thinking about.
Wow.
But I really do believe that all of us have taken a hit. But I also see in this environment that many of us are bouncing back, and some of them, the smart institutions who have strategic thinkers, are going to be better and make more and do better financially than they were before the pandemic because they're starting to think in that direction.
Wow. I hear you. I hear you. That's excellent. I'm going to start to wrap up here. Sometimes you say some things, Dr. Fair, I don't want to touch it. It's good as it is. So, so you hear me get quiet. It's not because I don't have nothing to say. It's just sometimes you leave what was just said right there and
That's
let that sink in.
Absolutely.
Uh, let's do this because I'm gonna bring things to a close.
Okay.
We've had a good, healthy discussion here.
Yeah.
And it really, I believe, is going to help someone. I know it has helped someone. I could just already see from the comments. And for those who are watching the replay, just resetting the room real quick. Thank you for watching. You have tuned in to Ask the Doctors broadcast, and we're grateful that you have taken time out of your schedule to watch how we discuss what I call the performance review, the virtual classroom dealing with the collegiate experience. And Dr. Timothy Fair from LSU, Louisiana State University, has been here just throwing around the knowledge. I tell you, has been laying it out for us and has been excellent. Dr. Fair, you mentioned earlier that if someone wanted to reach out to you, how can they do that? And parents, if you have a student, LSU sounds like maybe a good place to send your child to, where there's a Dr. Fair at,
Absolutely. I would let me hype up my school for a moment. Yes, LSU is a place. I often say this. I coined this term when I got here, but LSU is a place where you belong. And regardless of what you are or who you are, it's a place that you can find community. And so I
Yeah.
would absolutely strongly suggest, and I wouldn't work for an institution that I wouldn't send my child to. And so LSU is absolutely a wonderful institution with some really, really great and committed faculty members and a really great student experience that is second to none. And so if folks are looking to reach out to me, they can email me. My email address is timothyjfair@gmail.com. You certainly can, I'm on all social media practically, and I think that you can just kind of search my name and you'll find me. But I'd be happy to talk to folks, specifically those who are looking to really think critically about what it looks like to be a collegian during this environment, how to succeed, what are some success strategies and navigable tools. I'm down to have those conversations. And so please reach out to me.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, please check him out on social media. I love his sayings on Twitter. Man, I tell you, he knows how to put it together. I believe it's at point well taken.
That's right. Point well taken on Twitter.
Yeah, yeah. I don't follow too many people, but those that I follow, I do know, and he is one of the people I do follow, and really look forward to what he has to say on a consistent basis. And so, thank you for offering yourself up to those persons who may reach out to you. And let me tell you, people do reach out. So when if you are going to do that, just let them know that you saw him on Ask the Doctors, and that way it will jog his memory.
That's right.
Sometimes people reach out, you're like, how did they find me?
Right.
But yeah, so please do that. This has been excellent, man. I really wish you well in your role. You are a person that is needed in the position that you occupy.
I appreciate that.
I say that slowly because I want you to know that not only I, but I think even those who are watching can see that come through your passion for what you do. It's part of who you are. It's part of your mission. It's part of your God ordained purpose.
Yes.
And I really do appreciate the fact that you have taken on this as a mantle, if you would, really, to really make sure that those who are in need have the resources, have the people there who look like them, and then not just that, make the policies. We got
Exactly.
to have some policy makers, y'all.
Right. That's right.
People who understand, who can sit in the various seats of legislations and executive boards to make sure that we have the right people in place. And so Dr. Timothy Fair is one of those persons. Uh, this has been an awesome discussion. I had a surprise for you all today. I also had the provost from Virginia Union University who was going to join us today, but he will come back and join us. Man, this was meant to be. I'm just going to say it like that.
Yeah.
So let me just tell you, it was a surprise. It was my surprise, but I got surprised, and I love it.
That's right. That's right.
And this has been tremendous. Again, you can reach out to me, Hope Health Systems. I just happen to have our polo shirt on today because I wanted to make sure that I represented our institution well. I always tell the people when I'm on here that we'll do you some good. Mental health is where it's at right now, and will continue to be. And you need to make sure you have a place where you can go when you're in need of services. Don't suffer in silence, especially those who were in college. Let me
Absolutely.
tell you, I remember that was the first time where I ever felt alone, Dr.
Yeah.
Fair.
Definitely.
That was the first time I ever felt alone.
Yeah.
And some people can't handle that and feel isolated. And so there's nothing wrong with that. You just got to get the help.
Exactly.
You know, it's not a shame.
Not at
Nothing
all.
is shameful about this. And so if you need the help, reach out. You can reach out to me at Hope Health Systems, 410-265-8737. That is our intake number. We're located in Maryland, but we do have people who were able to service even outside of Maryland at times, depending on where you live. All right, Dr. Fair, just hang on tight. I want to go ahead and close us all the way out. Thank you so much, Cecilia Gibson, for watching. Rhonda Hayes, thanks again. Dr. Hayes, Dr. Terrence Hayes, Angela Pinkney, Sunita Watson. All these people are faithful in watching. Yeah. So thank you again. Please share, please like, and Dr. Fair, you will definitely be back on.
Appreciate you having me.
Yes. I don't know if I'm gonna have you back on as vice president, or I don't know, as a preacher. I don't know, man, because you would throw. I mean, just famed speaker. Man, all of that wrapped in one. Excellence. This is what we saw on display today. All right. Thank you all. Please enjoy yourself this weekend. Please stay safe. And I'll see you all next Friday. And we will have another edition of Ask the Doctors broadcast. And I'll be broadcasting live from out of state next week. And so just join me for where I will be at. So stay tuned. Okay. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.